Hello and welcome to Tonalist Painting by M. Francis McCarthy. This is your painter in residence, M. Francis McCarthy. And the painting we are doing today is, actually it's a study, I guess, is called Morning Trail, and this is a 5x7, and I painted this, I think in January of this year, so pretty happy with it, and pretty happy with the larger iteration, which we'll be doing next week as well. Those of you paying attention might have noticed I think I missed doing a blog post last week. What can I say? I was busy, really busy. Just trying to keep up on things at the house. We're just now going into fall down here in the southern hemisphere, and I had to get some kind of cleaning up done and get the house sort of ready for the winter, de-dustify and what have you. But I've been painting and currently working on a series of 10 paintings, and it's going okay, going pretty well. I haven't crashed. Well, actually we did have a bit of a crash, but we didn't burn. We pulled out, and that was a painting where I was doing a kind of a bright sky with some trees silhouetted against it, and mostly silhouetted, and it was just hemming and hawing, trying to paint the trees, trying to paint the sky, and the trees just didn't have the flow I had in the study, so I ended up painting over all of those trunks and letting that dry, coating it with some liquid, and then going in and painting some new trunks that look pretty good. So that painting's going to be a good one, and I'm pretty happy about that. I just went to the panel guy today, and for those of you that are interested, I paint on wood panels. I tend to paint pretty small, as you know, but I've been getting increasing pressure from galleries and other parties to paint larger, and so I've just ordered some 18 by 24 wood panels, which would be about as big as oil painting as I've ever done. I did do larger paintings with acrylics back in the 80s for the hospitality market, and those were generally sort of like abstract, graphic-y type of paintings, and they hardly count if you ask me. But they were paintings, and I was using a 2-inch brush to do those, so I've got some pretty big brushes, and it seems as long as I keep to the larger brushes on the larger paintings, I'm getting more and more comfortable with scaling my work up, and so we'll see how we do. I'm definitely looking forward to taking on these 1824s, and interestingly, I'm going to be painting motifs that I've done in the past. But I really like the idea of starting with a small study and then doing a larger painting, and because I haven't been doing that much larger work, I generally have left things there. Sometimes I've repainted paintings just because I felt like it, or because I sold them, and or I sold a version of that motif, and I thought it would be good to paint again and fun. But there's a guy named Alexander Harrison, painter, 1870 to 19 something, early in the 20th century, was a pretty well-known marine painter in his day, and he's got a bit of a space in a chapter in that book on American Tonalism, which is called A History of American Tonalism, 1880 to 1920, that I highly recommend if you can afford it. It's out of print, but one of the things that was mentioned in the article about him in there was that he would keep painting progressively larger iterations of a motif, and that's an idea that really interests me. And as long as those larger paintings are looking good, if they're not looking good, then it's just a bit depressing. As it is, any of you out there doing art know that when things go well, it's hard. But the best solution is just to, I've talked infinite times, like not infinite, but almost infinite times about strategies for dealing with. In fact, the last blog post was about dealing with failure, and just to reiterate here briefly, the best solution that I know of is just to do a lot of work, and not to just be doing one painting at a time either, but to have several paintings going at a time, so you have some successes going with along with other things you might be struggling with. So it's not just like you're slaving away on something, your masterpiece, and it's not going well. That sort of thing I've seen it drive artists into just not working at all, out of just the trepidation of dealing with their failure. And it's a legitimate fear. It's a legitimate concern. I mean, it's legitimate in that people actually experience that. Whether it's legitimate to fear failure, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it's something that we all have to face. But if you're not failing, you're not trying. So that's the most succinct way I've ever put that. Anyway, we'll be writing about something else in today's blog post. I'm not sure what yet, but it'll be interesting. So maybe you're curious how things are going in the studio, and I'd say pretty well. I've done like I said, I'm working on a pass of 10. It might be 11. I'm not sure. And I've got first color done on, of course, all the 5x7s are long done, but I've got first color done on the about 7 of the 10s. So I'm going to be doing a little smaller 8x10 today, and I'm probably going to be phasing those out. Maybe I'll do I did 2 8x10s in this last pass. Maybe I'll do one. They go really quick now, though, I can tell you, since I've been scaling up, and they are starting to feel a bit small too. So I can envision a day where I might start doing my studies at a size of 8x10, and proceeding on into what could be a medium-sized piece of 1824 and a large piece of 30x40 or something like that. So definitely in my future, assuming I continue to exist and live and work, which is an assumption we generally make until we can't. And I'd have to say the series is going pretty well. I've got I've actually made a change very recently, some new pigments. One color that's very interesting is called Transparent Orange from Gamblin, and I like it because, well, it's very permanent, and I noticed that the orange that I was using was it was permanent, but maybe not super permanent. And I'm working for art history here, folks. I'm working for posterity, and I want my paintings to last a long time, and I want those colors to look in 100 years like they look now. Assuming there is a world to look at them. That won't be my problem, though. I won't be here, but the paintings will, and I want them to look good. Another color that I've just started using I was using this violet. I've noticed a lot of violets are very fugitive in color and not as permanent as you might think. So I'm using this quinacridone violet from Gamblin again, and it's working okay. It's a bit redder than I like the violet on my palette to be, so I've actually been mixing it with a bit of phthalo blue before kind of putting it up in my little purple spot, as the violet on its own is just too red. But it's not really changing the look of my painting all that much, but again, these small changes are just adding up to greater permanence for my work. Anyway, I can see we're getting close to the end here. Thanks for joining me today. Sorry we didn't get you a post last week, but we're still here. We're still working. So stay tuned, and we'll see you next week for the larger version of this. Thanks for joining us, and stay out of trouble.